Hello there, I'm Nick, and I'm pretty sure I forgot to do an intro for my last episode. Oh well. This is the Game Apologist, where we look for the good in bad games. Now, we already covered The Lost World for the PlayStation and Sega Saturn, so let's not waste any time and check out the rest of the games that share the same title. 4 years is a long time to wait for a movie, and it can be an eternity in the gaming world. By 1997, we had already begun our shift into the third dimension, but we were still in that odd transitional stage from one gaming generation to the next, same as we were with Jurassic Park in '93. Lost World's gaming equivalent would be a varied experience depending on what you played with, and God help you if your gaming experience was on the Gamecom. This version of the game is part side-scrolling shooter, part driving game, and all bad. Like, really bad. Everything on this console is really bad. Like, we will have to do a whole episode on this machine on its own. For now, let's focus on Lost World. Just look at this thing. Do you want to play this? The controls barely respond. The music is just sad beeps. And this game runs at 5 frames a second. Which reminds me, hey, thanks game for going out of your way to show Sarah slowly lay down every time she gets hit. Are you taking damage or taking a nap? No, you go ahead and just lay down. I'll wait. You poor thing, how would I ever expect you to survive against a baby stegosaurus? In the movie I seen, remember Sarah nearly giving one of these things a freaking stroke with the camera. The ghosts of Fatal Frame don't even react this badly. But one of these walks at you in this game, and guys, I just can't do it. What are you doing? Just grab on the ledge. Just stick your fingers out and just grab the ledge. Rollin' f***ing tempo! To my knowledge, this is the only version of Lost World that gives you control of Muldoon 2 Electric Boogaloo. It's a shame that the control they give you is pure crap, but hey, that's still pretty neat, right? If there's anything good to say, the dinosaurs are wonderfully detailed, and I really love the animated backgrounds, and they at least try to vary up the gameplay. It's I don't know, it's strangely charming. I can only recommend this game to fans of this franchise or collectors of the console. But let me be clear, this is really bad. If you're not a weirdo like me, you're not gonna find any enjoyment from it. There's also a R-Zone release and a handheld, but come on man, I can only play Apologist for so much here. The R-Zone is just a Tiger handheld you strap to your face. It's more of a toy than an actual video game. Maybe someday down the road we'll do a deeper dive, but for now, just know it existed. Moving on. Lost World for the Game Boy. Like the 2 previous Jurassic Park games on the Game Boy, the game has you shooting dinosaurs while you collect a certain amount of items on each stage. And also like the 2 previous games, it looks and feels completely different from every other Game Boy Jurassic Park game. So, is it bad? Well, the physics are weird. Your character feels heavy, but can still accelerate a little too quickly. I mean, it's playable, but it's so bland and boring, there's barely anything here to talk about. Honestly, it's a little more reminiscent of Jurassic Park for Sega Genesis, but only in terms of movement and weaponry, which I guess is kinda neat, but as I learned as a child, I'm willing to put up with a lot of crap if it means I get to look at some awesome dinosaurs. And in this particular case,
what Nintendo?
This game looks like crap. I want to look at cool dinosaurs, and I can't look at cool dinosaurs. Okay, here's what the T-Rex looked like in the previous Jurassic Park Game Boy game. Look at that! It's like a lost form of Shin Godzilla 20 years early. But in the Lost World, well, Barney the dinosaur makes a cameo. Get out of here with this nonsense. I also don't like how the lime green clashes with the gray of the cart. That's not important to anything, I just don't like how it looks. Now, to be completely fair, you can get used to the controls, and it's extremely generous with health drops. Honestly, it's a perfectly fine game. Average, yeah, but that's more than most movie games were ever willing to attempt. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate the vindictive little stegosaurus, who doesn't just run into you and carry on with its day, but actually grinds you into the ground. Be sure to get all the human off your feet before you walk into the house, sweetie. Oh, and these game over screens? Every form of death gets its own unique game over screen. Everything from the T-Rex to the wee little bat. And oh, that's just embarrassing. Next is the Game Gear. This game is interesting for a couple of reasons. This was the final release for the Game Gear in North America, and while it doesn't play exactly like the Jurassic Park Game Gear game, it's not too far off in terms of playstyle. This is a platformer with a wide variety of levels and challenges, making this the closest thing we got to a proper sequel in terms of gameplay. So what's bad about it? Well, there's baryonyx. Nah, I'm just kidding. I love them. I mean, it's a very basic video game. You're gonna be hearing that a lot in this episode. Once you strip out the dinosaurs, there's nothing to write home about here. But it does have dinosaurs. Very detailed dinosaurs. At least what you could expect from a Game Gear. They even let you play a compy. And he is an absolute hoot. Even if he only stands like a foot tall, but still somehow has doorways built specifically for him on man-made structures. Yeah, the scale's a little off here. And I love the boss fights. Even the Dilophosaurus, who didn't even show up in the Lost World, gets a full-on boss fight in this game. They even reference the books with the camouflaging Carnotaurus. Out of the handhelds, this is far and away my favorite of the bunch. Let's move on to the other console game we have yet to cover. Because yes, even in '97, they were making games for the Sega Genesis, still lingering well into the lifespan of the next generation of consoles. I remember being disappointed by this game when I was young because I wanted it to be more like the original Genesis games. It's not, like at all. But playing it again, I noticed that this played a lot more like the Super Nintendo version of Jurassic Park, just like the Game Boy Lost World played a lot more like the Genesis Jurassic Park. Again, they're mostly their own games. They had different developers, but it's still kind of interesting and confusing. While this is an overhead shooter, there are some significant differences from the Ocean games. The island is split between 4 sections with nearly 20 missions to complete. You play a hunter who has to capture dinosaurs while stopping other hunters from catching dinosaurs. Your arsenal is basic fare: shotgun, tasers, grenades, you name it. You also get access to vehicles to speed up your adventure, and you get to go whitewater rafting. The Genesis game was brought to us by Apologist, a well-regarded developer of the day who brought us the likes of the Echo games, even that one, and Colibri, a shooter where you get to play a hummingbird. Alright. Oh, and they also made South Park and Jaws Unleashed. Yeah, you'll be seeing these guys again on this show. But hey, there's not a whole lot to whine about here. Going by critics, this was the best regarded Lost World game of the consoles, even compared to its more powerful counterpart, which we got into in the last episode. Still, let's get to the bad. Now, as a kid, I was not a fan of the bird eye view. I hated the pre-rendered dinosaurs, and I didn't enjoy how aimless it felt, which is weird when you consider how much I enjoyed the Super Nintendo Jurassic Park game. But in previous games, you had a variety of structures and landmarks. You gotta switch up playstyles when you entered buildings. This game is just an unending forest, but those are really the only complaints I could give you. This is actually a really impressive cart. It pushed this old system to its limits graphically, thanks to these guys being more than familiar with the hardware, and it plays great. They even have a cool little cooperative mode where I couldn't get anyone to play with me, so I guess we just won't talk about it. So let's talk about the arcade game instead. Maybe I just noticed it more often because I loved it, but I remember seeing this game everywhere when I was a kid, and I was always super pumped to play it whenever I had the chance. This was made by Sega, who were making big waves with their House of the Dead series, so they just did it again, but with dinosaurs. Replacing the undead with raptors might sound weird, but it was more common than you might think. It's your basic on-rails like shooter, but is there anything bad to say about it? Nope. Or if there's anything to gripe about, you could say it's short or lacks gameplay variety or the voice acting's cheesy. I don't know. What do you expect from something like this? This was all designed to be a short, adrenaline-fueled arcade experience. And while Poopy Buttholes might seem somewhat crude for the series, keep in mind that outside of the Lost World movie, every other movie in this franchise features massive piles of dino crap. This arcade game was simply keeping that proud tradition alive. And it teaches kids the proper way to wipe, with bullets. As for the rest, this game looked insanely good when it first hit arcades. There was a reason this was everywhere. It was so beloved, it got a re-release special version in Japan that featured the San Diego scene from the movie, a scene which, ironically enough, feels right at home on a video game. Yet this weird special Japanese exclusive arcade edition is the only place where you get that scene in game form. It was also heavily considered for a port to the Dreamcast in 2000. That's 3 years after the release of the movie. And while it never came to pass, that's how well loved this game was. I know it's doubtful, but I would really love to figure out a re-release of this game. And on that high note, that covers every other Lost World game, but not every other spin-off from the Lost World. There's still a lot of Jurassic games to get to, and we will in good time. But until then, I've been Nick, and I'm sorry for wasting your time.
Oh, hey. Hey,